Hi, this is Scott Marshburn with eCabinets Tips and Tricks. In this video I'm going to show you how you can create a cabinet size report using the data in the sheet component listings. What I've got is I've got a subroutine started here. I've got it named cabinet size report. Now if you haven't viewed my videos on working with eCabinets cut list in Excel, you're definitely going to want to take a look at Format eCabinets cut list in Excel Part 2 and eCabinets cut list in Excel Part 5. And those two videos I cover a lot of what I'm getting ready to walk you through in a lot more detail, so be sure you check out those videos. What I've got is I got my sheet component listing here defined as a worksheet, and then I got it set to be active workbook.worksheets and then the tab name sheet component listing. And now in step 2 here I'm calling up the subroutine that will add a new cabinet size report worksheet, and all this I cover in part 5. But that subroutine is called add CSWS, and what it does is it looks at all the worksheet names there, and if it don't find a sheet named cabinet size report, then it adds one. And after it adds it, I define it as a worksheet, and I got the variable CSRPT, and then it's set to be active workbook.worksheets cabinet size report. Now in this video I'm going to show you how you can actually work with a worksheet without ever activating it. And this is important to learn how to do because in future instances you may be wanting to access data from a worksheet that may be hidden from the users. For example, you may have a lookup table that you don't want them on and messing around with. So this is important to learn how to do, and I use this standard coding all the time. But what we're going to do next is we're going to clear any existing data that may be in the cabinet size report already, just in case this subroutine has already been ran. It's going to clear out all the data in that worksheet, and then it's going to copy the use range to the destination of cabinet size report CSRPT.range A1. And again, all this I cover in part 5. Now the next thing I need to do after I do that, let me go ahead and run the code up to that point, and you can see that it added the new worksheet there, and it is activated. Every time you add a new worksheet, it automatically activates it. So if you don't want this worksheet visible, or at least you don't want to be on it, you can put another line of code in here that says worksheet whatever dot activate, or you could say cs report dot hidden equals true. But I'm not going to do that because in this particular case we're going to be activating this worksheet when we're done anyhow. So what I'm going to do next, when I hit F8, it's going to copy all the data that is in the sheet component listing into our new worksheet. So if I hit F8, you see that we got our data in there. Now what I want to do next is remove all unnecessary data as well as duplicate cabinet names. And what I mean by unnecessary data is everything in column B all the way to column G here. We're not going to need that data that's in there. We're going to use these columns. So we're not going to delete the actual columns, we're just going to delete the data that's in them. So that code is csreport dot range parentheses and quote and column B there colon all the way to column G end quote and parentheses dot entire column dot clear contents. So if I move my arrow here, my little yellow arrow, and I execute that line of code by hitting F8, you see that it did remove all the data in those columns. Now the next thing I want to do is remove all the duplicate cabinet names here. You can see that cabinet 12 is repeated multiple times. I just want one instance of each cabinet name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go CSRPT dot used range dot remove duplicates. Now, when I hit space, it's wanting to know what columns do you want me to look at for duplicates. So I'm going to type the word columns and colon and equals. Now, I need the column index. I need to tell it what the column number is. And this has to be a number. You can't just put H in there. And in this case, it is column 8 because column H is the 8th column over. So I'm going to put 8. And now if I hit comma, it's wanting some header information. So I'm going to type the word header and then colon and equals. And it's wanting to know, do you want me to guess if it has headers or not? Or no, it does not have headers, or yes, it does have headers. Well, in this particular case, we're always going to have a header in column H. So I'm going to hit double click on yes. Now, when I click down here, everything capitalizes like it wants it to be. So that's telling me that my code is good to go. So I'm going to move my arrow here. I'm going to execute that line of code. So if I hit F8, you see that it did indeed remove all the duplicates. So we got one instance of each cabinet. Now we need to find the last row in the cabinet size report and store it in the variable LR. Now I'm using the variable LR, but you can use whatever variable you want. So I'm going to type LR equals CS report. Now notice that I'm referring to this variable each time I execute a line of code. And what that's going to allow me to do is work on this worksheet, whether it's visible or I'm actually on the worksheet without ever activating it. So if this worksheet is hidden, it's going to execute the code anyhow. If I didn't use this variable on each line of code that I want to execute on this particular worksheet, it's not going to work. It's going to try to execute the code on whatever worksheet I actually have activated. So I'm always using this variable here for this particular worksheet. But I got LR equals CS report. I'm going to go dot sales, and I'm going to go parentheses, and I'm going to go CS report again. Now you can actually do this without actually typing CS report right here, but what I found out is that if you're in a totally different workbook and you use this line of code without saying CS report and then dot rows, it's not going to work. And that's only in the case that you're in a totally different workbook. But I'm saying CS report dot rows, and then if I hit comma, it's wanting to know what columns do you want to count the rows in. But first I need dot rows dot count, okay, because I want to count the rows. So dot count, and now if I hit comma, it's wanting to know what column do you want to count the rows in. Well, I want to count the rows in column A here. Alright, so I could put 1 there without any quotes, or I can use quote A end quote. Now anytime it will let me, I like to use this so that I know what column I'm actually working with. If I were counting the number of rows in column 25, the only way I would know what column that is, I would have to count each column and say, okay, well, column 25 is blankety blank column. So I'm using the letter A here for column 1. I'm going to hit in parentheses, and I'm going to go dot end, and then parentheses XL up, and close parentheses. Now what this is doing is it's taking the cells in the cabinet size report and it's counting the rows in the cabinet size report and column A from the very end of Excel going up to the first row it comes to that has data in it. So I need dot row so that it knows to return that row into the variable LR there. So when I click right here and move my stop marker or my arrow right here and hit F8 it says, if I hover over this, that the last row equals 31. Now we're going to use that in our for next loop here. We're going to extract the cabinet sizes and put them in column C using the for next loop, along with the in-string reverse function. Okay, now what that does, the in-string reverse function looks at the starting at the very end of a string and looks to the left until it finds whatever you got specified for it to find. Basically what it does is it takes a string of text and finds another string inside that. In this case we're looking for the triple blanks, and the reason I'm using the in-string reverse function is because if you look here at some assemblies, that assembly, where that assembly cabinet number starts at, there's also triple blanks right there. If I were to use the regular in-string function, it's going to start here and it's going to look until it finds the triple blanks. In this case will be right here, and it's going to return the starting point for those triple blanks. I don't want that. I want it from here. So let's get our code in there. Right now we're starting on our loop, and I got a for x equals 2 to last row, and the x is the variable for the current row that we will be on in our loop, and I've got it set to start at row 2. So we need our in-string reverse there, so I'm going to type in, and if I hold down my control key and hit my space bar, I get a drop down where I can just select in-string REV there. Now if I type parentheses, I get this dialog that comes up. It's saying string checked. You see it highlighted here. Okay, string checked as string. Well, what that's asking for is what string do you want to check in? Well, I want to check in CSRPT dot range in parentheses, and I want quote H end quote, and then my ampersand and X, and in parentheses, and then I need dot value. So what it's going to do is it's going to take the value in range H and X, in this case column H, row 2, that cell right there, the value in that cell, that's going to be the string that we're going to look at. Okay, if I hit comma, it's wanting to know what string do you want to match. So I need to tell it what to look for, and what I want to look for is quote and triple spaces. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then quote, and then in parentheses. Now it's giving me an error here because I forgot to put my variable. I need a variable to put that in, so I'm going to go POS1, position 1 equals. Now that should work. And it's going to take that position there, that starting point where the triple blanks start at, it's going to put that in my variable, which is position 1. So if I hit F8 and then F8 again, you see that it's saying that it is in position 127, which is 127 characters for the very beginning of our string there, all the way to where the triple blanks start at. So now we're going to use that to grab this string here, this cabinet size here. So what we're going to do is we're going to trap the string in a variable using the mid function. And what the mid function allows you to do is set a start point. In other words, we're going to start at position 1 and return everything from that point all the way to the end of our string there. Now you can set a start point and a stop point using the mid function, but I'm not going to do that. I want everything from those triple blanks on back, excluding the triple blanks. So I'm going to go mid. Actually, I need my variable first, and that's going to be cab size equals mid, and then I'm going to go parentheses. Now it's wanting to know what string do you want to evaluate. Well, I want to evaluate range, csreport.range h and x dot value. So I'm going to go CS report dot range parentheses H and my ampersand and X in parentheses dot value. Now I'm going to hit comma, and when I do, it's wanting the start point, and our start point is going to be position 1. Now if I just closed this off with a parentheses and executed this code just like it is, it's going to return from here all the way over. In other words, it's going to include these triple blanks. I don't want to do that. I just want to include just the cabinet size and the type there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add those triple blanks to our position. So I'm going to go plus 3. So it's basically going to go 127 plus 3 and then put whatever's left in that string in this variable here. So let me put our arrow right here and go F8, and you see that it indeed put 36 wide by 36 high by 12 deep upper in that variable. Now we need to put that in column C. So I'm going to go CS report dot, this time I'm going to use dot cells parentheses. Now when you're using the cells there, it wants the row index first. Notice up here when we're using range, it wants the column first. So the row is going to be X, and now I don't, in this particular case, I don't need my ampersand. I can just go comma and then the column index. Now I can type in 8 for, or whatever column C is here, 3, or I can put parentheses, not parentheses, I can put quote and C and end quote and end parentheses. So CS report dot cells X comma C, X is the current row or on in the loop, equals my variable for my cabinet size, so CAB size. Now if I put my arrow on there and I hit F8, you will see that it indeed did put it in there, but it wrapped the text. And it's going to do that every time. It doesn't matter if you got wrap text turned off in column C. For whatever reason, it's going to turn it on every time. Now inside the loop here, I'm going to turn that off each time just so that I don't use up all my screen space when I'm debugging through this. You can put it down here after you complete the loop if you want, but I'm going to put it inside the loop here. So I'm going to say CS RPT dot range quote C colon C end quote in parentheses dot entire column dot wrap text equals false. Now put my arrow right there and hit F8. You see that it did unwrap the text there. So I'm going to hit F8 a few more times just to make sure everything's working. And it seems to be working just fine. So that is working good. Let me go ahead and run that code because I want to test this out a couple of different ways. I'm going to go ahead and run it and finish it, and just to make sure everything's working. And you see how it stopped at row 31 there, and all that's working good. So let's test this code out. I'm going to clear everything out, hit my delete key, and I'm going to go to a different worksheet and run that code. So I'm going to run it, and it did something. It did it real quick. Let's see if it actually put it in there, and it did. It worked good. Now what I want to do is actually hide this and see if it'll work on a hidden worksheet. Delete my data in there so we can see if it actually works. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click hide. Now that's hidden. If I come over here and I run my code, you see that it did something. We didn't get any errors, and our sheet is still hidden down here. So if I right click and click unhide and make sure cabinet size report is selected, click OK, unhide it, and there you go. So the way that I'm writing this code is going to be very useful later on down the road. If I want to have a hidden worksheet that I want to access. I want to go over what I'm going to do in the next video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use text to columns, a macro that I recorded, to break this cabinet size up. I want to put the width, the height, the depth, and the type into their own separate columns. And I also want to use text to columns to grab the cabinet number. And if it's an assembly, I want the assembly number as well as the assembly cabinet number, this right here. And now in Format eCabinets Cut List in Excel Part 2, I showed you how to record the macro to do this with the cabinet name, but we were actually activating the sheet component listing and selecting column H and doing all that. What I'm going to do in the next video, and you definitely want to check this out, is I'm going to show you how you can edit those macros and make it so that you don't have to select the column. You don't have to activate the worksheet. You could just tell it to do it. So make sure you stay tuned for those videos. And hey, if this video helped you, give me a thumbs up. And make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can get all my latest tips and tricks. And as always, thank you for watching and have a good day.